So in this video, I'm going to compare and contrast the Shun Sora 6-inch chef's knife and the Wusthof Gourmet 6-inch chef's knife. Both of these knives are in the same price point, and both are essentially the entry-level knives these companies make, so it really makes sense to talk about them. Off the bat, these two knives are much more dissimilar than they are similar. The Sora is a handmade and forged knife from Japan, while the Gourmet is a machine-made stamped knife from Germany. The biggest differences really come in the blades, which is what you would expect. The Sora uses VG10 steel, which is pretty much considered the gold standard of steel right now. It's a 61 hardness, so it's very hard, it's very resilient, and it holds an edge very, very well. On the other hand, the Gourmet is their own proprietary blend of steel, and it's only a 58 hardness. So what that means is the Gourmet is going to dull down much faster, it's going to lose its edge much faster, and it's going to need to be honed and sharpened much more often, and that's really something you want to consider. On top of that is the actual blade angles. The Wusthof uses a very, very sort of thick and hardy 18.5 degrees, and the Sora uses a very, very thin, very sharp 16 degrees. And what that means is that with the Sora, I could literally just do this straight down my arm right now and shave everything off. And with the Gourmet, even if I did that 10 times over, I'd probably lose 1 or 2 hairs at the maximum. So it's a much, much sharper blade. And on top of that, the actual whole knife is wrapped in stainless steel, which does two things. Number one, you get this gorgeous wave design that you see on the bottom of the blade. But number two, it makes it very resilient to pitting and rust and staining and things like that. While the Gourmet is just that steel that I was talking about, just a very sort of classic looking knife. The handle, actually, of the Gourmet is very classic as well. It's ergonomic if you're doing this sort of grip. And if you're doing the pinch grip, it feels nice. It's not a problem, but it isn't the most ergonomic, I wouldn't say. On the other hand, the Shun is a sort of traditional Japanese-looking knife. They're both plastic or composite handles. And what I like the most about the Shun in terms of the handle is this little divot on either side. When you do a pinch grip, it fits really nicely in your hand. It sort of morphs to your fingers, and this fills up the back of your palm. So you end up really, really liking the way it feels, I think. On top of that, both of these knives are essentially full tang. And what I mean is this, the Wusthof obviously has a gorgeous, beautiful, all the way down full tang right there. The Shun has something called a rabbit tang, which is the way they used to make like samurai swords and whatnot. It ends right about here. But in terms of practical use, it's going to work exactly the same as a full tang because you're still using the entire tang as a handle. You'll notice that when you're holding it like this, where the tang ends is right pretty much at your wrist or right before your wrist. So there's no lever or lever point where this is going to come out of the handle. So I think that really in terms of actual practical use, that's not something to really consider. And the second thing that I think isn't really as big of a deal as people say is the warranty. The Wusthof comes with a lifetime warranty, obviously. The Sora line comes with a 10-year warranty, but being that they're both manufacturer defect warranties, any manufacturing defect that you would ever think of is going to show up well before 10 years. So anything past 10 years by a manufacturer is normally, sort of lip service. Either way, I think that in terms of everything, the Sora is definitely the best possible choice, and sort of the final nail in the coffin is the fact that the Sora also comes with free lifetime sharpening, and this is why I think it's important. As you all know, if you give your knife to a reputable sharpener who does it by hand, it's going to cost roughly $5 an inch at a minimum to sharpen it, which means both of these being 6 inches would be a minimum of $30. And even then, you don't really know what you're going to get back. It might be one of those horror stories that we always hear about. With the Shun, you give it to them, they look at it. If they see any problems, they throw it away and they give you a new one. But otherwise, you can rest easy knowing that they're going to put the same edge back on the knife that you first fell in love with. So I think that with all that said, better steel, sharper blade, stainless steel wrapped around it, handmade, forged knife, lifetime sharpening, and it just sort of looks gorgeous. Especially considering that they're the same price, I think this wins 10 times out of 10. I'll put a link down to both below either way. If you guys have any questions or comments or concerns, as always, let me know. Otherwise, I will talk to you very soon. So in this video, I'm going to compare and contrast the Shun Sora 6-inch chef's knife and the Wusthof Gourmet 6-inch chef's knife. Both of these knives are in the same price point, and both are essentially the entry-level knives these companies make, so it really makes sense to talk about them. Off the bat, these two knives are much more dissimilar than they are similar. The Sora